Great. So welcome to the CAMTech Webinar Series. Our last installment hosted Jacob Fotung from CAMTech Uganda, who shared a few points for innovators in the CAMTech Uganda Co-Creation Lab. And we're really excited to transition over to our friends at Optum to share some tips on how to develop a practice pitch.
Great. So today we're talking to Sarah Konstantino and Larissa Purnell, who are two product experience managers for Optum as part of the Fusion Enterprise Accelerator team. And that team works across United Health Group enterprise, tackling their biggest challenges in getting products and services to market by leveraging methodologies such as human-centered design, lean, and agile to support their efforts wherever they are in the product lifestyle, which includes from establishing beginning designs in alignment to utilizing proof of concepts for pitching for funding, all the way to development and execution of strategy. So today, Sarah and Larissa are going to give a how-to on pitching for our global network of innovators. And Sarah and Larissa are both mentors at CAMTech's most recent hackathon here in Boston addressing gun violence prevention. And we're thrilled to have them share their experience with our global network. So Sarah and Larissa, thank you so much. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us, Andra. We had an awesome experience at the hackathon a couple weeks ago. It was really great to see all the teams pulling together ideas so quickly, and even seeing their pitches at the end was really encouraging. And what Larissa and I both thought would be super helpful for the group as they go on to their next round for demo day was giving just some presentation tips that we've seen work really effectively as we've worked with both internally and with teams across our organization. So as you can kind of see on the title here, how do we enable these teams to present so well that their audiences have to listen? So the first place we really like to start, and our team really believes in framework thinking. And Simon Sinek's Golden Circle, I think, is one of the great frameworks that helps a team really center around their core belief of their product and why it's so important for the audience that they're pitching to, or in this case, the gun violence impact, the impact they're looking to make on gun violence. Simon Sinek has a really wonderful TED Talk out there, and so I suggest everybody listening in on this also check it out. But he really states that businesses that make a huge impact in their presentations or in their advertisements really start with the why. Why are they here? What is their purpose? And what do they believe? And really striving to create that emotional impact and connection. Next, they move to the how, and how is often how they give their explanation of how something about their product or idea is different or unique from the rest of the products on the market. And finally, they move to the what. So that's the simplest part to identify. Obviously, what are you doing? What is the job function you're providing, or what is the service you're providing? Now, a lot of businesses actually start with the what and then work their way in. But the businesses that start with the why are often most inspiring. And Simon Sinek gives a great example with Apple, as they really start with the why in their advertisements, captivate their audience, and ultimately we see, obviously across tons of people who own Apple products, that they're more inspired by those messages than, let's say, companies like Dell that start with we sell computers. So just using this is a great way to start framing up kind of your approach and what it is you're using. The next thing we move into is the Decker model. Now, the Decker model is a framework that we use to actually create and craft that presentation. The magic behind Fusion is how do we couple frameworks together in order to create a solid impact. And combining the Golden Circle from Simon Sinek with the Decker model really enables teams to craft a really great story around their why. The first thing you want to do in the Decker model is establish your subject. Now, that could seem like a really simple task, but actually when you ask teams what the subject of their presentation is, sometimes they get really caught up. They don't know which direction they want to go in, or what they actually should focus on as their subject. So this is a great conversation point to start with your team is, what is our subject? What is the message we're trying to put out there? And what is our why?
Once you've established that baseline for your subject, the next step that you'll want to take is taking a deep dive into analyzing your audience. So this can really help evolve based on what your subject initially started as and what you know about your audience, and learn about them as you go through these questions. How can you evolve your subject to really hone in on what is compelling to them? So we provided 4 key questions to get that deep dive going. First, starting with who your audience is and why are they here. Most likely this is the group of panelists who will be there to review your proposal and to listen on what your proposal will do to have an impact on gun violence. So really thinking about why they are here and why they are listening. But you may also be pitching to people who don't have any background or knowledge of this. So moving to that question too of what do they know and how do they feel about the subject? Are they experts in the field where you don't need to have a high-level overview to walk them through to get to your proposal, but rather can just dive in? So like thinking about that gauge of knowledge and understanding to help frame what you will be proposing. Furthermore, how do they feel about that subject? So really thinking about, are they hesitant? Do they have some skepticism? Or are they really open to ideas and innovation and want to hear what you have to say that's grounded in evidence? Maybe they do have that quantitative versus qualitative background. So really thinking about how they feel and using that to craft your proposal. Third, what do they care about? So thinking about the different backgrounds that people might be bringing into listening to your proposal. What are the areas of opportunity that they focus on in their day-to-day work or their side passions that you might be aware of that you can help weave into your proposal to really pull at their heartstrings and show them that you understand where that passion is coming from and how your proposal aligns to that. And then finally, thinking about how you can help them. So what are the opportunities not only for them to support you in listening and potentially investing in your idea, but really thinking about the opposite of how are you supporting them in their work. So after you've assessed what they care about and what they think about the subject, you may have an understanding of how this proposal can actually support their broader research, their broader efforts, and really offering your area of knowledge and expertise to support them and benefit their own work can really get to that core of how you make your proposal compelling. Now that you have your subject and you've analyzed your audience, you can start to craft what your proposal will look like. And going back to elementary school and thinking about the foundational end-to-end essay that you have learned to write with a opening, a body, and conclusion or closing. That's what Decker really hones in on to get to that foundational level of what your proposal or your pitch should look like. So in the opening, the 2 core elements you'll need are first your SHARP. So a SHARP is an acronym for a story, a piece of humor, an analogy, a reference or quote, or a picture or visual. So choosing one of these as a hook to really pull your audience in now that you've really taken the time to understand what is important to them and what might make them feel more inclined to listen. You can use that to influence what type of SHARP you'll use. And in being part of the hackathon and listening in on some of the openers that people had, I was really impressed to see how people started with the persona to really build that empathy for who they serve, or starting with a hard-hitting statistic of how gun violence has impacted a population. These are things that really pull in the audience to listen. Your point of view is the second point you'll want to have in the opening, and this is really the one key thing you want the audience to take away. If they didn't listen to anything else, why does your proposal and your pitch matter to them? And this is really honing in on all of the work you've done so far and understanding your audience, understanding the idea you want to pitch to them and the subject matter. this is how you will hone in on your one thesis statement, if you will, to get that one sentence across to them of what matters most. Once you have your opening, you'll want to enter into your body and hone in on 3 key points. So it is proven that it's most memorable to have up to 3 points that people can take away from a presentation. So whether that is 3 use cases for your idea, or 3 pieces of evidence that support your idea. What are 3 things that can really validate that your proposal is one that the audience should have more interest in and want to invest in? And then finally, in your closing, you'll want to restate your point of view, again, honing in on why this matters to your audience, and what they should take away from what they've heard. And you'll want to close with another sharp. So it could be a rounding out of what you propose at the beginning with your opening sharp. It could be the future state of what could be if your proposal were to be invested in, but really opening up the opportunity for moving forward and the next action to occur. Once you've focused on the content of your pitch and really honed in on getting the core fundamentals of your opening, your 3 key points, and your conclusion, then you can start to focus on some of the presentation and presence components. As Decker has studied this methodology and emphasizes that content is more of the foundation, then followed by your presence. That's how we would recommend to you all as well in practicing your pitch. So we've included some of the key things to consider as you improve your presence in front of an audience. It's recommended to focus on 1, but no more than 2 to grow in, as it's really hard to improve all at one point. So you have some time, maybe focus on 1 per week, but you'll see here some examples are what does your eye communication look like? How are you making contact with the whole room and not awkwardly staying at one person for 5 seconds, more glancing around the room and showing your gaze very minimally, but really thinking about how you can be intentional with that eye contact. Second, what are your gestures and how are they supporting the content that you're presenting, as well as your facial expressions? Are you supporting the urgency of your presentation with solid facial expression, or are you smiling to really focus on the positive impact you can have? Smiles always go far, so really thinking about how that could fit into your proposal while supporting the content. In terms of your voice and the vocal variety, you want to make sure that you are inflecting your tone based on how you are, for instance, posting or presenting your point of view. How can you really emphasize that with the tone? How are you changing your voice to really inflect high or low, and being aware of being at a higher tone if you're nervous and some of those nervous tics. Fourth, what does your posture look like and what does your movement look like? So really thinking about standing up straight. There's something called a power stance where your feet are spread apart and your knees are slightly bent, and that gives an air of confidence and owning your content, but also internally gives you that confidence as well. And moving intentionally with your content and not necessarily pacing to show nervousness, but thinking about how you can encourage and invite the room with your movements. And then finally, thinking about the language you use and how it is influential or aligned to the subject matter you're presenting, and pausing for emphasis and for a breather. Really, oftentimes we see people who speak quite fast, so you want to think about how you can pause for intentionality as well as for the broader understanding of your audience. Now, with that, we would love to welcome any questions that people have, and we've included our emails here for those of you who have further questions on this model. We'd love to share, but really want to thank Sandra and Nick for having us on the webinar and having us share this wonderful framework that we found to be so helpful for our work.
We look forward to hearing all the demo day pitches in a couple weeks. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, thanks so much. I think this will be a really great tool to share with innovators on the CAMTech innovation platform. And, hopefully this will be a resource as teams continue to move forward in acceleration.